are sounds you never forget, not because they're loud, but because they sound like a soul begging. That day, in Phoenix at midday, the temperature was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was working like any other day, clearing trash along a quiet stretch that cuts through the desert. Dust rose in a cloud, heat shimmered off the ground in waves, and every breath burned in my throat. I only wanted to finish early, go home, turn on the fan, and be still. But then I heard another sound. At first it was tiny, like air hissing out of a crushed plastic bottle. I stopped and looked around. Nobody. A utility pole in the distance, a few cacti, and an abandoned road. I shook my head. Maybe I was just tired. Then it came again. This time, clearer, a groan, hoarse, broken, as if someone were trying to draw one last breath through dry earth. My heart slowed. I knelt and listened. The sound came from right beneath my feet. I used my pointed stick to brush away the sand. The soil was still fresh, soft, recently disturbed. And then I saw it. A faded red rope, peeking out of the dirt. The moment I touched it, something below twitched. I pulled my hand back by instinct. My heart pounded. Number. It wasn't wind. It wasn't a dead animal. Something was trying to live. I began to dig. With my bare hands. The earth burned my skin. My nails bled, but I didn't stop. Then, through the gray sand, a patch of black and tan fur appeared. I pulled harder. A dog's leg showed, skin and bone, trembling. I swallowed hard. My throat caught. It was a Doberman, a mother dog, or rather, the body of a Doberman that was still breathing. Half her lay under the dirt. A red rope was wrapped tight around her neck and both front legs, cutting deep enough to weep. Each time she tried to breathe, the soil around her trembled, like a grave itself drawing breath. I said, "My God." The smell of earth and blood mixed heavily in the air. I could hear her ragged breaths. Who? Then silence, then a faint choked sound like a sob caught in the throat. Part of me wanted to run. I had seen death on battlefields, but never like this. A living creature buried alive, tied up, in broad daylight. I shoved soil from her head, my hands shaking. She opened her eyes. Those eyes, dull, bewildered, but when light hit them, I saw a wet glint fall. Not from me, from her. A tear. The tear fell over the dirt and touched my finger, warm, real. I sank down as if someone had punched me in the chest. If you're watching, comment, I heard it. So creatures like her are not buried in silence. I leaned close to her mouth. Hold on, Mama. I'm here. No response. I put my hand on her chest. Her heart was still beating. Weak, but alive. Then I realized her belly was moving, not from breathing, from something living inside. My blood ran cold. They hadn't just buried a dog alive. They had buried a mother who was carrying a litter. Wind swept by, carrying the metallic tang of blood, the smell of death, and a feeling I couldn't put into words. I looked around. No people in sight. But on the berm behind, a shovel mark was still clear. Big, deep footprints led toward the highway. That meant they were nearby. I breathed in and looked down at the life gasping beneath my hands. If I walked away, she would die. If I stayed, I might come face to face with whoever did this. I don't know why, but in that moment, I simply knew I couldn't turn my back. I ripped off my shirt and wrapped it around her head to shield her from the sun, then started digging faster. The dirt collapsed around my hands. She gasped. Her eyes flickered. Her belly moved again. I found myself saying something that was almost a prayer. "Don't leave me. I promise I won't let you die here." It was the moment I forgot who I was, forgot the desert, forgot the heat. There was only me, and the Doberman, buried beneath a human cruelty. And if you're still watching, don't walk away, because what I'm about to show you next will make you believe that hell can truly take the shape of a human being. I don't remember how long I was digging. I only remember the blood from my hands mixing with the red dust. The last layer of earth slid away, exposing the whole Doberman. Her body was so thin her hip bones jutted like handles. Her black and tan coat was dulled by blood and mud. Her neck and front legs were bound with the same red rope, wound so many times her skin had split, leaking yellow fluid. The grooves cut all the way to the tendon. Someone had tied her tight, afraid she might escape, then thrown her to the ground. I stepped back, heart pounding. The sun blazed down, my shadow falling across her body as if I were the only thing standing between her and the world. No one around, no cameras, no witnesses, just me and the raw proof of a crime. I touched the rope lightly. Her skin was hot, her breathing fast. She tried to lift her head but only moved it a little. Her eyes cracked open, clouded, dim, but inside them a stubborn spark burned. Not fear, a plea not to be left. I pulled my old folding knife from my pocket. The blade was worn but still sharp. I slid it under the rope, cutting each loop carefully. The rope snapped free, leaving fresh blood welling up. She hissed faintly. I clenched my teeth and kept going. When the last loop cut loose, she collapsed to one side, chest rising and falling weakly. I cupped my hands around her neck to hold her head straight, and that's when I felt it. Her belly moving. Not just a reflex. A rhythmic, small, unmistakable movement, like other hearts beating inside. I froze. Oh my God! She really was pregnant. I pressed my ear to her belly and heard a tiny pop, like a bubble bursting. Impossible. I laid my palm down and felt a faint kick, weak but real. She moaned, not from pain, like she was trying to say something. My voice cracked. Hold on, Mama. They didn't kill you. A hot wind swept the hole, swirling dust. I squinted and saw deep tire tracks a few yards away. Fresh. The soil is still damp. Beside them, deep boot prints heading toward the highway. One person, maybe two. And on the edge of the pit, the imprint of a shovel's metal teeth. Not an accident. Not someone careless. Someone had dug this grave. They knew she was pregnant, and they buried her alive. I looked around. The whole place was silent but for my own heartbeat. Sweat trickled down my temple, salty and bitter. The sun hammered down. The wind burned dry, but a chill ran up my spine. That old feeling came back. The one I'd had on the battlefield, knowing the enemy is somewhere within sight but invisible. I bent down and gently brushed dirt from her face. A long scar ran from her ear to her cheek, like she'd been struck before. She opened her eyes. They were weak, but lit up when they met mine. I heard her ragged breathing and, inside it, a low sound like a heart refusing to let go. If you're watching, don't scroll past, I said hoarsely. Comment, save her. Maybe someone will see it, and next time, they'll get there in time. I slid my arms beneath her. She weighed almost nothing, just skin, bone, and breath. As I lifted, she gave a faint cry, and a drop of blood fell to the ground. The dirt soaked it up, fading fast, as if nothing had happened. I looked up at the empty road. No cars, no people, only the wind, and in it I thought I heard footsteps retreating. The Doberman curled weakly in my arms, eyes half open, trembling. I knew time was running out. If I didn't reach a clinic soon, she would stop breathing, and the litter inside her too. I laid her on the back seat of my old truck, covered her with my jacket to shield her from the sun. I had never felt my heart beat so hard. This feeling, it wasn't just fear. It was anger. A clean anger. Not violent, but deep and cold. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Desert dust rolled up, dappled with sunlight. In the distance, I saw a small black dot moving along the road. Tiny, but definitely a vehicle. Headed the same way as me. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "It's okay, girl," I whispered. "I'll get you somewhere safe." I promise I pressed the gas. The earth rose behind the tires, erasing the hole closing up behind us. But in the mirror, the black dot stayed on my tail, and I knew this was only the beginning. I had never driven this fast. The tires skidded across the dirt road, red dust swirling around the mirrors like a cloud of fire. With every jolt, the Doberman let out a faint whimper. Her belly rose and fell, her breathing uneven. I could feel each breath like a thin thread holding her between life and death. "Hold on, Mama," I muttered, eyes fixed on the road. "Don't sleep. Don't leave me." Far ahead, through the hot haze, I caught a glint of light. A black SUV, no plates, is still following me. The distance between us was closing. No siren, no shouting, just the low, steady growl of its engine like a predator stalking its prey. I pressed the gas. The road bucked beneath us, the steering wheel shaking until my knuckles ached. But every time I glanced back, the SUV was still there, about 100 yards behind. It didn't pass. It didn't fall back. It just followed. I knew that pattern. Whoever had done this was watching to see where I'd take her. I swerved into a shortcut that led to an old industrial park. The road narrowed, lined with abandoned warehouses, walls stained and peeling. Sunlight bounced off the concrete, making everything look like it was on fire. The SUV stayed with me. I gripped the wheel tighter, my heart pounding. In my head, there was only one thought. Don't let them see fear. I had looked into the eyes of men with guns, but today I was running from someone who had buried a mother dog alive. And I was afraid in a different way, afraid of a cold, mechanical kind of evil. I cut sharply onto a dirt road leading toward the outskirts. The SUV lost a few seconds turning, just a few, but enough to widen the gap. The Doberman's breathing grew faster. I angled the mirror to see her eyes, cloudy, but still with a trace of light. "It's okay, girl," I whispered. "I won't let them take you again." She whimpered. Her belly shifted. I saw each contraction ripple like weak waves under thin skin. I understood. Time was running out. I couldn't take her to the downtown animal hospital. It was too far. I remembered a small clinic on the corner of South 15th Street, where Dr. Grace Mitchell worked. I'd met her once, a woman whose eyes knew how to listen. I swung south hard, tires sliding, the truck lurching. The SUV slowed, maybe afraid of rolling over. This was my only chance. Hot wind lashed my face, the smell of rust and gasoline filling my nose. All I felt was my heart hammering and her raspy breaths from the back seat. A quick glance at the mirror. The SUV was gone. But I knew someone had seen me, and they'd be back. I lifted one hand from the wheel to stroke the Doberman's head. Her fur was stiff, her skin cracked. Under my fingers, she trembled, not from fear, but from clinging to life. "Just a little longer," I said, my voice breaking. "Only a few more minutes." Suddenly, a weak gasp escaped her. Then silence. I looked back. She lay still. My heart stopped. I slammed the brakes, the truck skidding through thick dust. I leapt out and yanked open the back door. She lay motionless, eyes closed, mouth slightly open, no breath. I pressed my hand to her chest, no heartbeat. Without thinking, I began chest compressions, pounding her rib cage like I'd done for fallen comrades. "Breathe. Please. Breathe," I shouted into the empty road. Dust swirled around us, the sky tilting. 1, 2, 3. Nothing. I drew a deep breath, pressed harder, hearing her bones creak. Then, a faint hiss. A weak breath. Her chest rose again. I gasped, tears spilling without me realizing. If you're watching, comment, "Keep fighting, Mira. Show the world there are still people who won't turn away from life." I held her against my chest, the smell of earth, blood, and sun mixed, sharp and metallic. She opened her eyes just barely and looked at me. That look was no longer fear. It was trust. I whispered, voice trembling, "I won't let them bury you again." I swear it, I carried her back to the truck, gently resting her head on my jacket. Far off, the sun was dipping, spilling red light across the sky. I knew there was only one road left. Get her to the clinic before darkness swallowed us both. I turned the key. The engine roared. A gust of wind blew past, carrying heat and the smell of sand. In the rearview mirror, the old road was still dust and haze, but I didn't look back again. When I saw the sign, Desert Hope Animal Clinic, open 24/7, my chest nearly unclenched. A small building, its paint dulled, sat tucked into the quiet block. A faint neon light glowed through the glass door. The word hope blinked on and off, like whatever life was left in me at that moment. I slammed on the brakes. Desert dust wrapped the truck. I opened the back. The Doberman, Mira, was still breathing, but each breath came ragged, as if dragged through a narrow pipe. Her eyes were half open, no longer filled with terror. Only a fragile human longing remained, to see the light one more time. I lifted her inside. The bell above the door chimed. A woman turned from the counter, a silver-haired doctor with reading glasses perched low on her nose. I knew her instantly. Dr. Grace Mitchell. "She was buried alive," I said, my voice breaking. "She's pregnant." Grace didn't ask any questions. "Put her on the table." Now 2 young assistants rushed over and spread a white sheet. When I laid Mira down, she gave a small gasp. A thin trickle of blood seeped from the spot on her neck where the rope had tightened. Grace glanced, then quickly shaved the matted fur around the wound. "She's lost blood, dehydrated, and exhausted. The heart is weak. Her abdomen is moving. She may be in labor." Those words landed like a stone in my chest. I stood there, hands crusted with dirt, trembling and not knowing what to do. Grace turned to an assistant. "Celine, IV line, oxygen, surgical tray, hurry." Then she looked at me. "What's your name?" "Michael," I said. "I found her out by the highway." "You just brought in a miracle, Michael. But we aren't out of this yet." She spoke as she started the IV in Mira's leg. Blood oozed, veins hard to find. Grace shook her head slightly, bit her lip, and adjusted the needle. On the 3rd try, the line went in. Clear fluid ran down, seeping into the bloodstream. Mira moaned softly, her legs twitching. Grace stroked her head. "Good girl. Now, let us do the rest." I stayed at her side, eyes fixed. Each beep of the monitor felt like a knife. When it slowed, I held my breath with her. Her belly rose and trembled. Grace watched the screen, then turned to me. The contractions are starting. If we don't operate now, both mother and pups will suffocate. I nodded, my voice hoarse. Do it. I'm here. If you're watching, don't just watch, I heard her say at some point, words that still ring in my ears. Write, hold on, Mira, in the comments. Maybe that little faith will help her live. The small room was filled with yellow light. On the table, Mira lay still, IV and oxygen lines in place, her body trembling faintly. The assistant set the instruments down. The clink of metal made my skin crawl. Grace inhaled deeply. Okay, let's begin. I stepped back half a pace, my back against the wall. My hands clenched so tight, my nails dug into my palms. Mira's abdomen contracted hard. Grace made a small incision. Blood spread, thick, hot, red. The metallic smell filled the air. I wanted to look away, but couldn't. The dog strained, trying to push. Grace held her gently, whispering, "Easy, girl. Breathe 1 minute, 2 minutes." No one spoke. The monitor's tone stayed slow and then, suddenly, lengthened. Grace tightened the forceps and tilted her head. "We've got a pup coming." A tiny, wet puppy was held up by an assistant, motionless. Grace placed it on a towel and began rubbing, massaging hard. 1, 2, 3. No response. I swallowed, my voice breaking. "No, don't let it go." Then, suddenly a faint breath. 1 breath, 2. A small, weak cry, real and unmistakable. The room erupted into silent relief. Grace smiled, sweat on her brow. "One is alive." I covered my face. The tears came without my will. Mira stirred her head slightly, like she felt it too. "We keep going," Grace said, steady. She did not stop. Mira did not stop. Between the pain and the blade, there was only faith and breath. The monitor's beep steadied. The rhythm returned. And I, standing in that warm light, with blood and sand on my hands, realized I wasn't just saving an animal. I was saving a piece of my own humanity, something this world had nearly buried along with her. Night fell over Phoenix like a smoldering blanket. The yellow light inside the single operating room of Desert Hope still burned, small and stubborn against the vast darkness outside. I stood there, fists clenched, the dried blood on my skin cracking and stinging. On the table, Mira breathed weakly, her chest rising and falling. Beneath the lamp, her belly twitched again. The second battle was beginning. Grace leaned low, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "Second one's coming." Towels, now. Another tiny puppy emerged, still, silent. The assistant rubbed hard, pressed its chest, but nothing. The room sank into the steady rhythm of Mira's heartbeat, then slower. I heard it falter, and something inside me clenched tight. I stepped forward and held Mira's paw. "She can hear you," Grace whispered. "Don't let go." I bent close and whispered, "Listen to me, Mira. Your babies are waiting. Don't leave." A shallow, broken breath escaped her throat, thin as smoke. Grace changed her motion, rubbing harder. "Come on, baby, breathe." Then, a small, weak sound. A whimper. The entire room exhaled at once. The puppy took its first breath, long, trembling, but real. I broke down. Not from pity, but because that sound was life itself fighting back against death. Mira turned her head, trying to lick her pup, her tongue quivering. I gently propped her head on a folded towel. Grace gasped between breaths. 2 are alive. 3 more. Keep going. Time slowed until I could hear the insects singing outside the window. Each newborn cry was like the pulse of the room itself. Some came silent, some crying, but soon all were breathing. When the last pup was placed against Mira's chest, Grace looked up, eyes shining. "They're all alive." No one spoke. We just watched, 5 tiny lives pressed against their mother, searching for warmth, milk, and peace after hell. Mira looked at me. In those weary eyes, I saw something no battlefield had ever shown me. Faith. "If you're still here," I whispered, "type miracle in the comments. Because tonight, in this desert, a real miracle just happened." Grace smiled, pulling off her gloves, her voice shaking. "She's a fighter, Michael." She came back from the ground. I looked out the window. On the empty road, the wind lifted dust into a slow spiral. The moon shimmered over the sand. Somewhere out there, the footprints and the grave still remained. But inside this little room, life had won. And I knew from that moment on, I would never again turn away from a faint cry for help, no matter where it came from, even if it rose from beneath the earth. When I opened my eyes, morning had broken. The first sunlight of Phoenix streamed through the glass window, spreading across the metal table, glimmering over patches of dried blood. The clinic was silent. Only a steady breathing remained, soft like a prayer. Mira lay on a white blanket, the IV still in her leg. 5 tiny puppies were curled against her belly, their breaths faint but even. One sneezed, lifted its head and searched for milk. Mira shifted slightly, licking its nose with a trembling tongue. That sight, it was so beautiful it hurt. The hole, the red rope, the cruelty, all seemed to dissolve in this light. Dr. Grace walked in, a cup of hot coffee in hand. Her eyes were red, but her smile was warm. "She made it," she said softly. "All of them did." I've never seen a will to live that strong. I nodded, my voice rough. She didn't just survive. She won. Grace looked at me, her expression turning serious. "Michael, you said someone buried her?" I was silent. In my mind, the image of the large footprints around the pit and that black SUV from last night flashed again. I clenched my fists. "I'm sure. And I think they're still out there." Grace sighed. "What are you going to do?" I looked out the window. The sun was higher now, but the sand still looked cold. "I don't know. But I won't let this disappear. Not just for her. For every animal that might be buried like her right now." Mira opened her eyes and looked at me. That look was no longer pleading. It was gratitude and a message. I bent down and whispered, "I understand. I won't turn away." "If you're still here," I said quietly, "type justice for Mira. Let them know. We see. We care. And we will not stay silent." Outside, the wind lifted the sand into the air. And in that morning light, I realized I was no longer alone. Because here, in the heart of the desert, justice had begun to wake. 3 weeks later, the sun blazed bright again over Phoenix. In the small yard behind the clinic, the wind carried the scent of dry earth and cactus flowers. I sat on an old wooden chair, a cold cup of coffee in my hand, watching Mira and her 5 puppies play under the light. They scampered around her, tiny feet pressing into the sand, leaving hundreds of little prints, the footprints of life itself. Mira moved slowly, still thin, but her coat was now glossy. The red scar on her neck remained, but it looked less like a wound now, more like a medal of survival. Grace stepped out, smiling softly. "Look at them," she said. "No one would believe they were under the ground just weeks ago." I nodded. The world can be cruel. But sometimes all it takes is one person to stop and everything changes. We fell quiet, listening to the wind. My mind went back to that first moment, the pit, the red rope, and those eyes staring at me through the dirt. Something inside me changed that day. I used to be the kind of man who stayed silent before others' pain. Now I know. Silence is its own kind of cruelty. Grace turned to me. "Are you going to call the police?" I looked toward the distant road, sunlight flickering on the asphalt. "I already did. But I know. There will be others, and I'm going to find them." Mira heard my voice and lifted her head. She walked over and rested her muzzle gently on my knee. I stroked her head, my throat tightening. "I promise, Mira. I won't let anyone be buried in silence again." She looked at me with calm, knowing eyes, then turned back to her pups. One stumbled and fell, and Mira immediately turned, nudging it upright with her nose. I smiled. In that simple gesture, I saw a mother's love, stronger than anything human cruelty could destroy. "If you're still here," I said softly, "comment, 'I see you, Mira.' Every word you leave is a witness that we will no longer look away from cruelty." I looked up. Sunlight glinted off the clinic's window. On the wall, the sign still flickered. Desert Hope. The word hope blinked faintly, just like the night I first found her. Only this time I knew that light wasn't going out again. Mira barked softly, her puppies swirling around her like a tiny cloud of life. I took a deep breath, smelling sand, sunlight, and the quiet scent of rebirth. Inside, my heartbeat slowed, but it no longer felt heavy. Maybe you're watching this on a peaceful evening somewhere, while I still hear Mira's fragile breathing echo in my mind. It reminds me that miracles don't always come from far away. Sometimes they're born in the smallest acts, when someone simply stops to listen to a cry too soft for the world to hear. I want to say thank you for walking beside Mira, beside me, through every breath, every heartbeat, every drop of dried blood. Because without you, on the other side of this screen, this story would have been just another cry lost to the wind. And now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever saved a life? Perhaps with a glance, a share, or a helping hand? Where are they now? Are they still with you? If the answer is yes, tell me in the comments below. Because every story you share is another heartbeat of kindness, a way to make sure Mira and others like her are never forgotten. And if you believe these small miracles deserve to be heard, hit subscribe. Share this story so each one doesn't end in pain, but stands as proof that goodness still exists. My name is Michael, and I'll keep telling these stories until every faint cry in this world is finally heard by someone.